Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. I'm Richard Nixon and I shall be your host for the next 25 minutes as we dive deeper into the world of digital procurement. Talking of which, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, CPO, not C3PO, meant only one thing: Chief Procurement Officer, a position of power, influence and control. However, we find ourselves in uniquely challenging and changing times, and we need to respond to this. So there are new variants of CPO emerging, and we want to talk to you and take you on a journey through the connected procurement organization today. We're going to go on a journey for the next 20 odd minutes that features dinosaurs, castles on hills, and epic battles between best of breed and end-to-end solutions. But fear not, everyone, because we have with us two people to lead us on our journey, two crusading procurement optimizers, Ciaran Owens of Imperial Brands and Pierre Laprée of Pierre Angusta. Gentlemen, hello.
Hi, Richard.
Hello.
I don't know how we follow that, but...
Well, let's start with some introductions. So, Ciaran, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and about Imperial Brands?
Sure, of course. So, Ciaran Owens, I'm Head of Procurement Excellence at Imperial Brands. We are let's say, a global procurement function, and the Imperial business itself is a global consumer business in tobacco, over 120 markets and over 27,500 employees. You'll see some of our portfolio as well on the slides. So John Player, Galois, Winston, West and Riesler, to name a few, plus some of our next generation products, Blue and Pulse. So that's a little about me.
And Pierre, tell us about yourself and tell us about Pierre Angusta.
Hi, Richard, and hi, everyone. I'm Pierre Laprée. I'm the founder and the CEO of Pierre Angusta. Before being on the dark side of service and software provider, I used to be a procurement director. I was the right hand of the CPO for the Adecco Group, the staffing company. So Pierre Angusta is a procurement performance management solution provider. We're headquartered in Lyon, in France, and we have mid-cap and enterprise clients in more than 15 countries across Europe and the US.
Fantastic. So everybody knows by now there's been great participation in terms of the chat and the Q&A through all the sessions over the last day and a bit. Please keep your questions and comments coming. We hope to allow time as long as the storytelling is short enough so that we can answer those towards the end of the session. So keep firing those in. Really looking forward to hearing about them. So Ciaran, let's start with you and let's start with the procurement transformation story at Imperial Brands. Can you tell us something about that, and where did Pierre Angusta fit into it?
Sure. So procurement at Imperial Global Procurement is 8 years old. It was a greenfield, let's say, development of a global function, built from the beginning on people and relationships, as every procurement organization begins, with limited technology. We're now, when we've been going through a cycle of let's say, review of that, and in 2019 we did an assessment of our vision and strategy, really looking internally at the organization, the pain points they saw, listening to that user feedback. And it was through that we saw that change as a chance really to drive transformation. We re-established some really new design principles, and it really cornered on, let's say, on revisiting the source to contract process and redefining it as demand to enablement. And ultimately our goal was being to try and, let's say, create an orchestration of procurement and take total control of the service. So really where Pierre Angusta came in is we brought in suppliers early, and that really helped us sort of really match the solutions that matched those principles that we had. And as you say, we explored best of breed, we explored full suite, and really compared the two and all the viable options, the choices that were there. So when we look at the, let's say, the selection we made when we chose Pierre Angusta and Market Dojo as a joint bid, and let's say from a CPO perspective, we looked at taking the standardized approach. Why de-standardize? Because it increases complexity and risk to your technology, and also the ability to co-develop. And really, that's what we found with the two parties, was they were able to show us a deep, built for purpose principle, and both of which, not surprisingly, as Pierre highlighted, come from procurement background, really resonates. So, we wanted to go quick, ultimately, as we transition from our previous technology, and we were able to do it in 6 weeks, which really just show the capability that both companies had. So I think, ultimately, I'd say we were 80% data ready. I think we had good data capability already, but with the team, we were able to get to 100% and deliver what is this dynamic procurement performance capability that we've got today. So this is really part of our, let's say, ongoing, digital transformation journey. And I think we'll talk in a bit more detail now how procurement performance is like a key enabler for us to help and drive and unlock greater value for procurement. And as we're looking ahead into more spend integration, enhancing our contract management capability as a business, as well as, really revisiting how do we manage the demands coming into the procurement organization.
And you did look at best of breed and end-to-end solutions in this journey that you went through, Ciaran.
Yes, absolutely. We explored all. I mean, we did a very good job, I think, of establishing design principles that really tested each technology that came through the door. And ultimately, in this case, the Pierre Angusta model, ticked all the boxes for us and really helped us start to define this closed loop spend management principle that we wanted to achieve. That we just say is going to unlock that value, Richard. So that's really the stage that we're going through now, is enhancing that. I'm sure we'll talk in a bit more detail in a moment.
Okay, thanks very much. So Pierre, turning to you then, we've heard about Pierre Angusta was used in a best of breed setting at Imperial following the battle, but what is the best option? Is it best of breed? Is it end to end? Is it something else that we haven't thought of?
Richard, I think you should not bring that kind of question to a Sunday lunch with the family. I've been since the late 90s. I've been learning and working with enterprise IT, and since the dawn of enterprise IT, there has been a war between integrated suite and best of breed, and you always find 1,000 people giving you 1,000,000 reasons why one paradigm is better than the other. And to some extent, everybody's right, depending on where you look at it. But I think that ultimately nobody won. I mean, we're living a very exciting time. And what is winning today is a hybrid approach, okay? And what we mean by a hybrid approach is that if you want to be successful, you need a strong backbone. That could be your ERP, that could be your P2P system. But then you need a few point solutions around that will bring very specific and very specialized. And this is the future, I believe. And this is not so much about a paradigm or a doctrine or almost a religion, but it's about choice. It's about making a choice that is sustainable and that will take you and work and grow with you in the future. Because what is right for you right now may not be right in 3 years from now, okay? You have matured, the market is evolving. I mean, we've seen that quite a lot in the past 18 months, but the world is changing every day almost. So you need to change, you need to embrace that change. And if you're stuck with your ERP or your huge S2P suite that supposedly takes everything from A to B and is the next big thing, well, you're doomed. It's hard, but fundamentally, you're like the dinosaurs. You're going to become extinct because you cannot adapt fast enough and bring enough value to change. And I think that it is all about agility, choice, and doing the right thing at the right time. And this is a very big trend we see on the market right now, is that this is what we call procurement performance management. And this is becoming a thing. We no longer think of procurement performance as a transactional thing where you look at the PO cycle time or the matching percentage. It's important, but I mean, it's not very exciting and not what you need. You need to think of it in terms of the activities that will get you the best deal with the best supplier at the right time. And then you can transact and place POs and pay invoices on this basis, but the transaction is no longer the measure of value. And procurement performance management is about orchestration, about all these pillars. And I think that the choice that Ciaran and Imperial Brands did a few months ago, well, a year and a half ago, is really about ensuring procurement performance management is not an afterthought, but actually the cornerstone of their procurement strategy. And that's bold. And they did it, and now they have a way to ensure that whatever strategy they have, they can put it in motion and actually deliver results to the business. So for that, honestly, Ciaran and great, well, you should receive a lot of kudos.
Yeah, and it raises an interesting point, Pierre, I think. So, clearly you've been working with this technology and working with clients to develop procurement performance management for some years now, and you're talking about agility. So if we look at businesses now, in the COVID/post-COVID world and environment where digital's going faster and faster, are companies moving more quickly now than they did 2 years ago? What are some of the changes that you're seeing, Pierre? And you're on mute.
Best quote of 2020, you're on mute. Sorry about that. Changes happen in technology, but also in the behaviors, and this is actually quite interesting. Again, the world is evolving, and you need to embrace that change. There's a story of new startups, of upstarts that are coming there and bringing new solutions and bringing solutions that can be interconnected. So that's the main changing we see for now, and yeah, I guess we'll talk about the future later. But I think that it would be more interesting to get the feedback here from Ciaran on that, because they are the vector of change, the change vector.
No, absolutely, Pierre. No, I concur what you said earlier as well. I think the future is an ecosystem. Yeah, but connection through from supply chain side and on your stakeholder side, both are as important in a global organization like ours. And I think for the CPOs who have got global reach, on both sides, that's a lot of complexity to deal with. In a developing, risk, the portfolio risk is just expanding. So ultimately, when I think from a CPO's perspective, as you say, absolutely, continue to step up, take the enterprise level view. And for me, if you look at all the great technologies on show here at this conference, not each and every one of them is suitable for all your needs as a CPO. You're going to find the ones that do, others may not. Each business is different. But ultimately, through procurement performance management, we're looking at people, process, and technology, and volumetrics that then enable us to look and understand and continuously reassess the cost and the performance of our function. So that's ultimately what we're getting from Pierre Angusta, is the ability, the backbone to do that. And as you rightly say, Pierre, the speed of change is coming, that you should, not in all cases, but in some cases, be working dynamically to pick and choose technologies that are going to fit to that need at that time. So that's how we're trying to develop this. So it's really about asking yourself, how and when do you evaluate, how do you use your time, your resources, and where do you invest? So really it's about the TCO outlook.
So tell us a bit more about that, Ciaran, in terms of how you made this happen at Imperial.
So if you TCO is nothing new, right? But if you look at it and you apply it to your organization, I call out here at this point, it's in principle like that. Years ago when I worked in automotive, of taking a TQM approach, but ultimately what you're doing is trying to, let's say, shape the demand and aggregate as where you can, unlock further value with relationships with finance, supply chain, to identify and remove the waste from the process. And really the way we're doing that is to enhancing the use of the data points we have. So really when you look at Pierre Angusta as an example, I look at it from a point of view, how are you controlling your demand on your organization? And really it's about a way of sort of, let's say, dynamically monitoring. And I give an example here of your own manpower efficiency. It can go amiss when you're in a global function, but to give you an example, we're looking at forecast age is one area in Pierre Angusta. We can look at how, when we're planning things, is it still accurate? If it's in progress, are we drifting in terms of how effectively we're controlling the spend we're managing? And as well, when it's completed, ultimately, how well is that manpower performed? I'm looking at here from a point of view on, billion, FTE per billion of spend, whatever currency you like. But ultimately, when you look at time and manpower together, you're able to take control and unlock that visibility. And I think that's where the power comes. You will own your own business case, your benefit cases, and arguments for investment. And that's the important thing now, because the speed of need for investment is going to increase as you digitize more and more. So it's really that ultimate point. Procurement performance management helps you unlock that ability to do more with less, which we're all being challenged with. So it's really, are you thinking that same way? And that's how we look at it.
And that's a fascinating point. I've spent all my career in procurement, and in terms of savings and improvements, the focus was always on the number and the size of the saving. And really, we're entering a world now where we've got to think about how quickly do we deliver value, and with what efficiency do we deliver value. If you turn that on its head, it's a debate that many sales organizations will have, not just size, but speed and efficiency. I think it's a great point you make, and it's really interesting that you've seen how the technology's been able to help you to do that. So thanks for that, Ciaran. So we've had the past of the story. We've talked about how it happened. Let's look to the future and think about well, what comes next. Ciaran, I'll come back to you first on this.
Sure.
What is next on the agenda for Imperial?
Really, it's a continuation of enhancing the maturity of that dynamic procurement performance work. Really, then looking forward to getting to points where we can start to truly go back to finance and financial planning and reintegrate into their processes, modeling the financial position and bringing procurement much closer to the front of the process. And that in itself, that's truly aligned with business planning, and that really then drives a number of matters around our approach to risk and supply management and everything else that falls off the back of it. So ultimately, that is going to give us, let's say, the ability to drive a more integrated procurement within our organization. And another example I'd say under that umbrella is around the contract management piece, where we're truly trying to get a handle on the total picture of buy-side contracts in order to, again, to drive greater efficiency, but also to mitigate the risks that inherently sit there. And it's exactly the same as you would find on the direct material side as we do with our supply chain function. But that's the sort of next steps we see ahead, is really trying to leverage that greater analytical capability we're building.
So that's really interesting what you say there in terms of the connected procurement organization. We often hear about procurement saying we want to be more strategic, we want to move upstream, and you've talked about that in the demand management. But we've heard at this conference and in other places that a digital procurement transformation in isolation of the organization's overall digital transformation, it's like it's putting the cart before the horse. Mm-hmm. So that's really important too, in terms of aligning, linking up, and making sure that fit is there, so that in terms of the data, the information, and all that stuff, there's a lesson that many of us can learn from that. Pierre, turning to you, what do you see in the future in terms of the development of procurement performance management?
Well, first, the thing we see is that it actually emerges as a discipline. We used to have downstream procurement, upstream procurement, but now there is an overarching layer above that, and that's procurement performance management. It's how do we make sense of all of that? How do we become the lifeblood of strategic sourcing and upstream procurement? How do we make this work? And the most telling sign is that you now look at top tier analysts and the procurement media and influencers. They are starting to talk about procurement performance management, and they recognize that. From our perspective, so again, we certainly have a certain bias there as a software editor, but the CPO of a large client recently told us that we've become the backbone of their procurement tool. And previously, we were thinking as P2P as the backbone. But again, it's just for transaction. When you look at the team as the people who actually bring value to the organization, the backbone is about strategic sourcing. And so what we do basically is that we bring together all the technology landscape from our client. We bring the solution provider. spend visibility to actually feed the pipeline, find new opportunities. It's connecting to the e-sourcing solution to execute on the projects that are a good fit for that. But it's also putting together information from content providers. We're working with people like EcoVadis for CSR scoring, with CreditSafe for credit scoring, with Darkbeam for cyber threat assessment. And we're bringing this together so that the buyer don't have to run around 5 different systems to get a holistic picture of who their suppliers are and what their activity is. We're putting that together. And one of the things that Ciaran said, procurement needs to step up. And we need to recognize one thing. First is that savings is not a dirty word. And there are other ways than twisting a supplier's arm to get better cost. You can work collaboratively. So we need to embrace that. We need to recognize that procurement has a major contribution in terms of costs, and there are sustainable ways to do that. And it's the baseline of procurement. And it has to be smart, it has to be transparent, and it has to be done in a concerted way with the business and, more importantly, with finance. That's an enabler, and that's what we at Pierre Angusta, we enable. And once you've established that baseline, you stop counting beans. But you've established the baseline to actually focus on the things that matter. And there are so many more interesting topics, so much more strategic topics. One of the things we're doing now is non-financial performance. Okay, there's more to life and procurement than savings. That's right. You can start measuring the impact on CO2 footprint from your procurement action, water consumption, waste. That could be anything. And now we have that, and we help our client do that. Again, until we have earned the credibility and become accountable for the financial aspect, that's our bread and butter. Any conversation about the rest, about sustainability, about innovation, it will be noise. It will be noise to the C-suite. So get that done. Does your chief of sale ever have to be challenged on their sales number? Never. Why is procurement always challenged on savings number? We need to get past that. Okay. So yeah, it's about that. Procurement performance management is about establishing that credibility and talk about the good stuff. So it's exciting.
So Pierre, I've got a question, and let's segue into Q&A. So do I get this right? Pierre Angusta provides a framework to integrate the point solutions, or does it only extract data from these systems and provide performance benchmarks?
Oh, so thanks for the question. That's a very good one. The core of Pierre Angusta is really about sourcing pipeline management and benefits tracking. 99% of our clients, blue chip, very famous global leaders, they had Excel or SharePoint to do that. So that's our core. But we realized that we didn't exist in a vacuum. And so that's how we started to connect with various solution and content providers. We have now more than 30 different solution and content provider integrated. That's Coupa, Ariba, CreditSafe, EcoVadis, well, you name it. And so it's actually both. It's a tool to manage the activity of your buyers, measure their performance, and ensure that you're aligned and that you have proper governance in place with finance. But it's also a hub, a place where you can connect all your solutions to have a more holistic approach.
Excellent, thank you for that. And just while we get any other questions, quickly, Ciaran, if there was one thing you were going to do differently going through starting this journey again, what would it be?
It's an interesting one. Honestly, I wish I'd done it sooner. That would be one of the things, in total truth, because it is, let's say, ultimately, you can only typically go as quickly as your community is able to consume. And I'd be wrong to say that applying any solution isn't without its change challenges. So I think for me, it's certainly a little more around change and change management. And really, as you say, I think ultimately, and I still want to achieve this, is get more and more of our community involved in driving the change initiatives that are still to come. Because it's really the community together that then bring value. They're probably the key things I say. And, you know.
Thanks, Ciaran. I see the clock has hit 11:35. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for your participation. If you want to know more about Pierre Angusta, we have demos coming up for the US on the 21st of September and Europe on the 5th of October. Thank you very much, Pierre. Thank you, Ciaran. And whatever your CPO and whatever your procurement journey you're going on, may the force be with you, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thanks for having us, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.